Hello again, everyone. Jeremy Miller back with the Hire and Fire podcast brought to you by Pyra Consulting. I am your host, and we are joined again today by Chad Sandy, and this is episode number 6, What's in It for Me? We dive into the vantage point of what it's like to be job seekers, hiring managers, consultants, recruiters, account managers, salespeople in the staffing business, being an employee versus being a manager. We try and break down every vantage point for you. So enjoy the episode, and we'll come back again with another one. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Hire and Fire podcast by Pyra Consulting. Back for another episode. We're on episode number 6. This one is What is in it for me? So we're going to be talking ideally with an unfiltered approach about everybody having to do with the hiring process. Salespeople, recruiters, consultants, employees, managers. What do we want? Why do we want what we want? And what type of nonsense do we think is going on in all the different groups? Jeremy Miller here, back as your host. Chad Sandy, welcome back.
It's good to be here.
Good to be here. It's great to be here. Thanks, Jeremy.
All the way from 40 feet away.
It was a long walk. It was a long walk to get here.
Oh, I'm tired. So, what do you think hiring managers want? Let's start with that.
I think they want some peace of mind. I think they have an opening on their team. Normally, it's not fun, meaning it wasn't like this big pile of cash fell out of the sky, and it's not always that they have a fun new initiative. A lot of times, it's just we got to get back to our head count. Somebody quit, somebody got fired, what have you, and we need to fill this. We need to fill this position. So they just want some peace.
Yeah. So I was thinking that if the hiring manager had the magic wand, what they would want to do is make one phone call to their favorite recruiter or whatnot, staffing firm.
Or even HR, for gosh sakes.
Yeah, one phone call, 3 awesome resumes, interview 3 people, hire 1. That's what it seems like they would want,
makes
right?
sense. But then why the hell do we have hiring managers, not all of them, but a select few, that will interview 10, 12 freaking people?
Well, that's a bone of contention.
Is that right? So
Yeah.
you don't like it when they do that?
Well, it's an irritant in the sense that everybody is aware and admits the market conditions. Unemployment, virtually non-existent in technology.
at least presently.
Right? The supply of available talent is low, but yet you would think they would move fast, but I would say 9 out of 10 hiring managers don't, despite the knowledge of the current market conditions. I can think of one right now, hiring manager I have that is, you send him your best couple, he picks out the top one, interviews them, hire.
Yeah.
Boom. And if it doesn't work out, he's going to move on to the next. But for the most part, the process is not lining up to what the economic conditions are.
Okay, do you think that's because they don't know? I mean, do you think it's possible that even a minority, maybe a large minority of the hiring managers don't really know that it's a tough to find candidate market? Do you think they just assume people are always available and always findable?
I actually do think that's part of it. I was at
So then maybe you suck as a salesperson
No,
that you're not educating your customer.
That's part of it.
That's part of it.
I was at a happy hour with a hiring manager and his team a week or 2 ago. And we were talking about a particular skill set. I think it was Java. And
for you non-IT people out there, that has nothing to do with coffee, but continue.
Yeah. And the question was, well, Chad, what do you think the talent pool looks like? Java developers.
Yeah.
Senior Java developers. So senior computer programmers, Java language.
Sure.
And I said, well, you know what? As far as the available talent, I think it's like 2/3 to 3/4 foreign nationals.
Sure.
Versus maybe 1/3 to 1/4 local U.S. citizens.
Regarding the available talent.
Correct.
Even passive job seekers.
Correct.
Yeah.
And everyone at the table was surprised to hear that. And so
So they thought the number would be bigger.
more local U.S.
More
citizen.
local.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they were genuinely surprised. Now, I'm just going off my only 23 years of experience, but I'm just saying that it could speak. It could speak to my, to the lack of education the hiring managers are getting, because they did seem genuinely surprised.
I think that's because our industry is saturated, especially when the economy is good. There's a lot of companies out there. The economy tanks. There's going to be companies that struggle, maybe even go under.
Plus, do you think there probably is this piece where the hiring manager makes a call to his 5, 10, 15 vendors on his vendor list?
Gosh, I hope he's not calling all 15.
And nobody's rarely being truthful. Hey, I need a Java developer. Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
Everyone's so excited to get a requirement.
Because they want to show the positivity, but they know damn right that they're going to go tell the recruiters, and we're going to be like, ruh-roh, this is going to take a while to find.
Yes.
Interesting point.
I think that a lot of recruiters are hesitant.
So salespeople are full of shit, is what we're saying.
We're hesitant to be fully honest about the difficulty of a search. Maybe
I think that's fair.
And so
well, and I think the reason why is, even if you were honest and you were like, all right, Mr. Manager, like, I'm not going to lie to you, this is a tough skill set, blah, blah, blah. What if the other vendor or two has available people in their back pocket, and then now you look like the dipshit who made it sound hard, but it wasn't on their end? Maybe.
What's your question?
I don't know if I have a question. I personally think that we as in the staffing side of the industry, make assumptions that the people know how tough this is.
Now that you just said that, now I'm flipping the script a little bit, because I'm thinking I actually have a role open right now that is a very tough to find skill set. And we've filled it once, and we're about to potentially fill it again.
PyrateConsulting.com, just click on job openings.
And you know what? You're right. If I flip the script, I actually think there's a good chance that the hiring manager is going to be impressed with our ability to find this hard to find skill set.
Because he thinks it's hard.
Yeah, and it is. It's a new enough technology that the pool of talent isn't there because the technology is still immature.
Sure.
And so, but the fact that we've delivered twice now with really good people.
Sure.
He might be thinking, wow, these guys are really good, and my other vendors aren't maybe doing their job, and I don't think that's the case. So when I sort of flip it, we might benefit by just having maybe a little bit of luck combined with a lot of hard work finding these people.
If we know that it's a fact that, as a general rule, hiring managers are not going as fast as we would want them to. And let's define that. We're recruiters and salespeople inside of a staffing company sitting here thinking, if we find you the right person, hopefully a couple, because we want you to have options too. But if we find you the right person, we're sitting here going, unemployment is low, maybe even arguably negative in IT. Why can't you interview this person tomorrow? Right, so we want them to be giddy up and go, Johnny on the spot. But they're taking their good old time half the time. At least that's what we feel. So why is it that we on the staffing side feel like speed to market is so frickin' important, if even when we are fast, our hiring managers aren't as fast as we want them to be?
Yeah. Sometimes I think maybe hiring managers might still have their paradigm isn't modernized, so they still have the old school paradigm of the hiring process, which generally does take a couple weeks, right? In the old school way, you know what, you go to an interview, maybe a second interview, maybe a third interview, and a tour of the office or whatever. And now I'm applying this to any job in general. The interview / hiring process in the older 10, 20 years ago took a while. It was normal to take a couple weeks, get an offer, start. So from the day you have your first interview to the day you start, it might be 3-4 weeks. And so I don't know. I think hiring managers are still locked maybe a little bit in that mentality, because it sometimes helps, but I don't even think it helps, because I can just hear people listening to this now saying, well, Well, Chad, you have to set expectations with the hiring manager, 24 to 48 hour turnaround and feedback within 12 hours or whatnot. And I don't even think that sometimes educating or setting proper expectations even helps. They still move slow. They move at their own pace. And I'm not sure why that is.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, go ahead, move at whatever pace you want. I think maybe our job is to continuously educate them throughout the process. We just don't know what the hell is going on with other vendors. So if you have a hiring manager at a major corporation utilizing us as a vendor, and we have successfully connected with a really good candidate, we want to get him in play because we're assuming, normally fair, that another vendor is ticking the same way. So the last thing we want to do is get a candidate submitted day 5, but another firm had candidates submitted day 2,
right,
and they interviewed that person immediately. And we just don't always know. And there's only so many times where you feel like you can really grill a hiring manager. Okay, bud, hypothetically speaking, if you get a candidate tomorrow, are you going to interview on blankety blank? What if another firm gets you somebody quickly? Are you going to be willing to wait? Like, we're not normally digging into that stuff. We're just trying to do the best we can, get a good requirement, get it out to the recruiters so that we can figure out who we have available now and or who we have to go find. And that's two very different things. So for the candidates out there, what the candidates might want to know about how staffing people tick is that when we're reaching out to you, if you're dealing with a good recruiter, they're trying to figure out what you want. And they're trying to drill down to understand why you're leaving your job, where do you want to go, what are you looking for? And they have a job in the back of their mind that they think you might fit. But if you're good, you're not going to push that job on that candidate until you know it fits what they've now told you they want.
Right.
So even if we connected with you on day 1, the job that we have immediately open might not be a good fit for you. And why bother asking you to go for a job that's frickin' 30 miles outside of your commute radius or $20,000 less than you want? Mm-hmm. So now we kind of have to wait. So there are moments where, from your perspective, we've been talking with you for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and now we have the perfect job. But from the hiring manager's perspective on the perfect job, yeah, we submitted you on the day it came open or the second day that it was open, but they might not be in as big of a hurry as we are from the staffing perspective and you are from the hiring perspective. And we got a bunch of people trying to figure this out. I mean, let's frickin' be honest. This is a little bit of a shit show on a daily basis. How many people are involved in this? Mm-hmm. Salespeople meet with client. Salespeople give job to recruiters. Recruiters reach out to candidate, maybe even a few candidates. We validate your interest, need updated resumes, might need screening done, might need information from you. Recruiter presents candidate to internal account manager. Internal account manager may or may not have another candidate they're looking at. Then we're selling it over to the hiring manager. Who knows what candidates the hiring manager is looking at, and then we're trying to push for interviews. So the scheduling turnaround time can sometimes be freaking weird. And sometimes we're awkwardly fast. Like, we just talked to you at 2 p.m. and you're interested. Remember that gig that we filled not long ago that we got a phone interview scheduled within 45 minutes?
Yep.
So our recruiter talks to the guy at 1, has him submitted to you at 1:30. You have him submitted to the hiring manager at 2, and the guy's on the phone with the hiring manager at 3:30. Man, it rarely works that way.
Right.
Rarely.
I think, how does this sound to you? I think people are inherently lazy.
Oh.
And I think all of us want to do as little as possible and make either as much money or, we want to do as little as possible and have maximum benefit, whatever the benefit is. Filling that role. Doing as little as possible to fill that role. Doing as little as possible but making the maximum amount of money. I think a hiring manager, in general, these guys, these gals are so busy. Their phones are blowing up. They're in meeting after meeting after meeting. I think what they want is they want to be able to do as little as possible and fill the role with the ideal candidate.
Fair.
That's what I think.
Do you think that's insulting?
No. I think if getting back to topic at hand in the last 5-10 minutes that we've been talking about, it's great if they would move as fast as, if the speed of the process would match what they probably want. So I don't know if it's because they're, budgets. They're not really playing with their money. Do you
Their
follow
own,
me?
yeah.
Right? And so does that affect it one way or the other? I'm not exactly sure how that might be tied into bonuses or, but it just doesn't seem to match up.
Well, I mean, it depends on. Well, okay.
Because
I'll give you this for sure. It depends on what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're looking for a easy to handle process, then that might be how we have to sell it to them. But we've also had hiring managers that are super anxious about this because they know the best thing is to get somebody in on Monday because the guy or the gal they're backfilling is leaving the following Friday. So if they're going to do some overlap on maybe some knowledge transfer, then they need to get somebody in there immediately. Obviously, we would like to be able to know that so that we know at what speed to work and we can accommodate them based on their timelines for that situation. Mm-hmm. But we don't always get that. And not only do we not always get that, I think we kind of rarely get that.
Right.
So that's why we get into hey, we talked to the hiring manager on Monday, we submitted an excellent candidate at the end of the day Tuesday, and then we're getting an interview request for the following Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we're looking at each other like, shit.
Yeah.
All right, how do we speed this thing up?
I also think there's a piece where you got two different parties, in this case the account manager or recruiter and the hiring manager, and both have different knowledge levels. And have you ever had this? I have, where the hiring manager says, I need a Java developer, just to use Java again. And then you start to ask follow-up questions, details, and they kind of brush you off like, look, I'm in a hurry. I told you know what I need, a Java developer, you know my environment. And you have a hard time qualifying it because I think it's like trying to explain to a child how to brush their teeth. We've brushed our teeth all of our life, but if I sit down and think about how to teach or describe to someone how to brush their teeth, I would struggle with that because it's like, because it's just so simple and basic to me that if I was trying to teach it, I'd be like, well, no, just brush your teeth. Put the toothpaste on the thing and brush
get
your
the
teeth.
fucking toothbrush and go.
And to some extent, hiring managers, I think, are like that. They have such a knowledge of what they want and what they need and what the person will be doing that to them it's almost so simple that when they tell you, I need a Java developer, that they have a hard time articulating exactly what that means or helping the hiring man or the account manager drill down.
I think consultants or even just job seekers in general, whether you're a permanent employee or whatever, can experience this on the flip side, where think about those super technical skill sets where we have clients that want to do technical screens or they want us to do technical screens. They want us to do that shit because they've been burned, period. Mm-hmm. That is the reason. They're not doing it for fun. They don't want to slow it down normally either, but they have to validate that this person can do what they need them to do. What they, being the hiring manager, don't understand is this poor guy is looking for jobs and having 2, 3, 4 different organizations asking him to do ridiculously time-intensive technical screens.
Right.
So this poor guy is like, dude, I do this for a living. You want me to write code for 2 hours to be able to prove to you what I can do?
Right.
They're more likely, whether they like it or not, and whether they're willing to admit it or not, they're more likely to half-ass a technical screen because they just want to get the damn thing done, especially if they had to do 5 of them. And then now we're in a situation where we're getting negative feedback on a technical screen and we have somebody who's pissed because they know they're good and we're telling them the screen didn't come back good.
Yeah.
So we got all these different vantage points.
Yeah, I've had that happen with Best Buy in town. Big corporation, an A+ developer, but he had 4, 5, 6 other irons in the fire. He took his code test and didn't do well. And this is like a 15-year guy.
And then he's insulted.
He's insulted,
Yeah.
and it was tough to repair that. What do you think? What do you think recruiters want?
I think recruiters want a ton of stuff that job seekers would never be able to know. Like, let's think about one of the most annoying components that job seekers experience is having irrelevant, dumbass jobs sent to them that don't even fit what they're looking for.
Yep.
And what they may or may not realize is that, A, some of the recruiters they're working with are not very intelligent based on the industry and how to work with consultants. So even though they mean the best, and I don't know if I've ever come across a recruiter that doesn't mean well. I mean, I can't think of one that I've ever worked with that is truly half-assing it on purpose.
Right.
They're just trying to put their best foot forward. And they run the risk, the low experience, typical person, of reaching out to a job seeker about a job that has nothing to do with them or is not relevant. Mm-hmm. So I think the recruiters can feel a ton of pressure internally to follow through and perform. Whether that's finding a candidate, whether that's running a certain amount of meetings, the whole thing. So there is a notion out there, absolutely, that people are sick and tired of meeting with recruiters because they meet with a recruiter and then nothing ever happens. Mm-hmm. That might have been an excellent recruiter, but they may not have a good job for that person. Now they should follow up via communication. But recruiters, we're commission-based people, so we make money when we place you, period. But we also have all of these different motivations that are in play.
Right.
And you won't know that as a job seeker. So, I mean, what recruiters want, they want to perform. They want to get candidates in consideration. But there's so many other factors. You're not just trying to impress your account manager or your boss. You need to impress your account manager and your boss by finding the right person, by impressing the candidate. So finding the right candidate and following through on what you're telling the candidate you're going to do, and that's the right job for the candidate, and they are simultaneously the right fit for the client.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting dynamic because, of course, what the recruiter wants is to find the right person and fill a role, right? But they also want to check those boxes when it comes to what their, say, activity metrics are. And I think that's why a lot of younger recruiters reach out to some suspect candidates. And then the snowball effect, right? Then the candidate's pissed because why are you even contacting me about this? And the recruiter genuinely wants to fill the role, but they're also under pressure, again, to call so many people, send so many emails, submit so many people. So that pressure sometimes, I think, the desire to want to check those boxes and hit their activities and make their management or their ownership happy in conjunction with, of course, finding the right candidate and filling the role, I think sometimes leads to some of the negative stereotypes about recruiters. Make sense?
I think it makes perfect sense, but the negative stereotype about the recruiter is fair.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fair.
It is.
I was telling you earlier, I mean, my Gmail account, my personal email, I haven't had a resume out on the job boards in over 3 years, and I'm still getting emails about selling insurance for frickin' State Farm in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well,
no one, my resume hasn't been out there for 3 years. You didn't bother to call me. You just blindly sent me a stupid job description. And now, I'm not going to overthink it. Neither is most job seekers. You're just deleting it. But if you were to actually follow up with me and ask me what I think about the job, you know me. I'm an honest, full disclosure guy. I'm probably going to rip you. Because what the hell? Did you even bother reading the resume?
Right.
So I have personally experienced everything about what our job seekers experience. And the only way I can positively change that is by building an organization like Pyra Consulting that is hiring senior recruiters intentionally and training them, for lack of a better word, on how to converse with people.
That's PyraConsulting.com.
Pyra Consulting, Pira.
All right, so I'm gonna
so cheap
I'm
and
gonna-
cheesy.
All right, so I'm gonna take off the PC hat.
Are
slightly,
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So look, here's what I think recruiters want, and of which I was one almost all of my career. So I'm about to point the finger at myself.
That's fair.
I think recruiters want to work on stuff that they can fill, maybe call it the easy stuff, and they want to have no competition, either internally or externally,
Oh, I like this.
especially internally. I don't think recruiters like competing against their own employees. Oh, you mean we're both assigned the role? I hate that. I think recruiters want to work easy shit with no competition that has super high margins and is really easy to find.
Yeah.
And then the external competition, you're the only vendor working it. That's what I think.
I think that's true.
And they want a big fat salary.
Yes, they do.
Very high.
And high commission plans. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's what I think.
And I'm dealing with managing that every single day.
Yeah.
Because like it or not, if you have a tough to fill requirement on the board, name any skill set, it doesn't matter. So pick any skill set that's in high demand. I don't care if it's healthcare, IT, whatever. You are going to have recruiters, for the most part, whether they're willing to admit it or not be willing to put in the effort associated to go find that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would rather rely on the people you already know, which is normally the easier to fill skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
or you would like to be able to reach out to 15 people total
Yep.
and find one out of that bunch, and not realizing that you might need to spend the next 4 days, 8 to 10 hours a day or more
Yep.
digging in.
I think they want to be able to go to the job boards, and because there's no external competition, be able to do all their keyword searching and know that no other vendors are working the role, so they own the job boards. Do some searching, search the ATS system. That in our case we have Crelate, but whatever your ATS system is.
Applicant tracking system for you non-staffing people.
Yes, sir. Bullhorn,
Whatever.
JobViva,
Sure.
Crelate, whatever. They want to search their ATS system. They want to search the job boards. They want to be the only one in the office working it. They want to have it where the pay is low and the bill rate's high and there's no external competition. That's what I think.
Well, that's kind of Captain Obvious that what everybody's looking for, but the reality of the situation is that, okay, my old organization shit on job boards, and I mean shit on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of hid them where they were still available to us recruiters, but you kind of had to find it, and then they preached that being the last resort. Now, I understand their mentality, because their mentality was this is where every staffing firm is going first. And I think there's merit there, because if you're not a senior recruiter who knows exactly what he or she is doing, you're going to be talking to people that are getting blown up. So you have to be able to converse with candidates, know exactly how to sell what you can do. You need to be able to send them jobs that are right on what they need to be. And you have to be able to know that you're competing directly with 8 to 15 other firms that are reaching out to this person. Why are they reaching out? Because they're on a friggin' job board. And they have raised their hand, and their hand is up and it's shaking and waving, saying, I'm looking for a new job to some degree. So those people are going to be pounded for different job opportunities, which doesn't mean it's good or bad. But the reality is a lot of the people at other firms don't know how to play that game. Mm-hmm. So when I'm mentoring new recruiters, I'm warning them. I'm saying, use the job board, go for it. I don't care. But you have to understand that every single person you talk to is getting freaking hammered by every other firm. So A, they're going to have multiple opportunities going on that you have to compete against. And B, you have to be able to out-recruit and outperform other recruiters throughout the rest of the job-seeking, job placement process. So that's cool as long as you know how to play the game. The flip side of that is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, freaking great resource, but we don't know who's looking on LinkedIn. We have no idea. It's just profiles. So you're randomly reaching out to 50, 100 people that you have no reason to believe that they're looking. And you're trying to get a hold of them, maybe actually convince them to look at something, try and get them on the phone. All of that sucks. So I just think it's a both and. I think you need to be able to cherry pick to a certain degree the skill sets that could be more fillable by having an established network of people. Use job boards, use your database, use your referrals, use your connections, use all of it.
So let me ask you something, because I do think that's a problem. I think there are staffing companies out there that cap themselves. They reach a ceiling where they just can't bust through it to that next level, whatever that is, weekly margin or profit wise,
certain headcount, whatever.
And I think it's because the bulk of the staff is using those what I call simple methods, using the ATS system, searching the job boards. So this is a question for just an advice question. I'm curious. So how do you motivate a recruiter to work the harder to fill roles that are going to require something a little more than just pounding a database or pounding the job boards? Because on the surface, you go like this, well, shit, I just assign it to them. Well, then they pound this job boards, they pound the database, and they don't find nothing. And then it's loss after loss after loss after loss. Any advice on how you teach or motivate recruiters to...
My only thought that pops in is what you've heard me say 1,000 times. There's only one thing that separates staffing companies, and it's who delivers, period. Who delivers? I mean, if you're a job seeker, okay, so here's been my logic about if you're a candidate, and if I'm wrong on this, I would love to be proven wrong. Love to. You're a job seeker, and you probably connect with, I don't know, 5 to 10 staffing companies on some level, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 maybe 4 or 5, 6 that are new, and they reach out to you and you kind of cherry pick who you're going to connect with based on their messaging, their timing, or whatever the factors are. You're going to speak with 4, 5, 6 of them, of the 10, of the 12, whatever. And then 2 or 3 of them that are going to successfully convince you to meet with them. And then no matter what level of communication you've had, you have 1 or 2 of them that you're kind of rooting for. And even though you're rooting for them, you don't necessarily care where the best job comes from, because if you want the best job, period, whatever that criteria is. So that's on the candidate side. Mm-hmm. On the hiring manager side, you want vendors that consistently perform. And what the hell does performance mean? As a general rule, you could say that fill my recs, but that's not necessarily true. They don't have to fill every requirement. They just have to consistently perform by getting you good people.
Yeah.
Because if they get you good people and you interview them and they were a good use of your time, but that firm loses out to another firm, as a hiring manager, they still provided value.
Yeah.
Because you had a few people to consider, and that individual firm may not have filled that one rec, but they showed up over and over again.
Yep.
So go back to your initial question. We have a tough to fill rec and it's annoying as shit, whatever you want to call that. My message to the team is, you and I both know, team, that this is a tough to fill requirement, and 60% of the staffing firms out there are going to give it the old college try, which is job boards and database, and move the fuck on.
Yep, a few LinkedIn's.
They're gonna move on, whether they did it on purpose or subconsciously.
Yeah.
And we have to be the firm that says, screw that, we're gonna take pride in every single rec that's on the board. I've been saying this about Robert Half, and I'll name him and talk shit, and I don't even care. So here's my PC hat being taken off. Robert Half is one of the few organizations that everybody knows. You walk into any coffee shop in the middle of the day, and you randomly ask people, name a staffing company, any staffing company, there is a high probability that that company will be named, just because they're so big and they advertise and their name recognizable. And there are other firms that are substantially bigger. However, their name's out there. But the reality is that do they or do they not perform, right? So Robert Half, based on their name recognition, is having a lot of business come to them. Mm-hmm. People are willing to call them saying, I need help. But what hiring managers and what consultant job seekers don't know is that there are 1.2 million job openings on Robert Half's board, and they're not all treated equal, not even close. So if they fill a bunch, cool, but they will let a few of them go for a variety of reasons. A firm like ours is doing everything we can to be able to fill every frickin' thing that we have. At a minimum, provide value by taking a good rec and getting them a good candidate or two. And those are the firms that deliver. So yeah, you might be Robert Half and be hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions of dollars a year in revenue, but are you really delivering consistently? And I think because of firms like that, that's why this stupid industry is where it is, where every major corporation has 10, 20, 40, 100 different vendors on their vendors list, because nobody does this very, very well. So they have no choice but to use all these different firms.
Right.
And don't even get me started on VMS systems and how job seekers get screwed up there. I'm going to have to touch on that in a bit, but continue.
Yeah. Well, one of the things when I was saying about, people are inherently lazy. Remember when I said that earlier? I think when it comes to recruiting now, so we're talking about recruiting right now. Ideally, you want your job to be as easy as possible and make as much money as possible and come and go as you please and do all the fun things. What's ironic to me, and I really do want your opinion, because I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe you did this. And despite not doing it, I think you were obviously very successful, 40K plus a week.
Stop stroking my ego again. That's 2 weeks in a row I had to call you out for that bullshit.
I know. It's
Continue.
So I think the irony is that for a recruiter's job to be easy, it would be like this. This is when a recruiter's job is easy. I've identified the 5 or 6 main areas that we place people, whatever it is. Just rattle it off. 80% of our fills are Java developers, .NET developers, business analysts, project managers, and software testers. And if you have your own personal network, 20, 30, 40 people each in those 5 categories, so you have a couple hundred people in your database that you're staying in touch with and building a relationship
As an individual recruiter.
As an individual recruiter. You build up to that.
Yep.
I got these couple hundred people in here.
Yep.
And all of them fit these 5 areas, or 10 or 3 or whatever, where almost all of our fills come from.
Core skill sets, sure.
Eventually what happens is anytime a salesperson walks through the door and says, got a need for a Java developer, as a recruiter you go, yep, of my 40 Java people that I keep in touch with on a monthly or quarterly basis, 4 are looking right now or in the next 30 days, and let me see the job description. Yep, 2 are slam dunks, bang, quick, submittal, job is easy, right? But to get to that point is the hard part. In other words, to build your network to the point where you're there is the hard part.
Hell yeah.
And the irony to me, or the frustration to me, is I don't think there's a lot of recruiters out there who are doing that.
Hell no. And I'll tell you.
So they never. The irony is, because we're all trying to make it to where our job is, quote, easy. They never do the work on the front end to get to the point 6 months down the road, a year down the road, where you have this mature network or database that now allows your job to be easy. And therefore, what happens is they get stuck in that rut of only working the easy shit. And then when a hard thing comes up, they take the same approach to trying to fill the hard rec as they do filling that manual tester with Quality Center. And the activity that it takes to find that manual tester with Quality Center ain't going to work when you're trying to find the DevOps person.
The gem, sure.
Right. And so that, to me, that's ironic, because what happens then is all of a sudden what seems like, look, you got to start, bro. You got to start. And you're not going to have a lot of fruit from this labor, so you're going to still be doing all this grind. But 6 months from now, you're going to start seeing fruit from your labor. The irony is no one ever starts. And then what happens more often than not is 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 12 months goes by. Java developer after Java developer after DevOps engineer after SDET keeps coming and going, and no one has built a network to finally get to the point where it gets easier to fill those roles. And so then the roles, it's this constant circle where it's just this constant failure to deliver on those roles. Now, I want your opinion on it genuinely, because I know that I don't believe that is necessarily how you went about your day-to-day, but you were still successful despite of it.
All right, here we go. Odell Beckham Jr., you know who he is, right?
I believe so.
Wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a Steelers fan. I hate the Browns. But I love watching this guy. I liked it better in New York because he was a little bit more flashy, which in a lot of ways people hated him for it, but I think this is how we got big. Remember that ridiculous one-handed fingertip grab that he had, and it was like ranked as like one of the top plays in NFL history?
I think against Dallas.
That sounds right, falling into the end zone, but I'm not 100% sure if it was Dallas. I don't even care. So that's not a fluke. Like, did you see all the ESPN shit for years of how that guy pre-game would go out into the end zone and have whoever, I don't even know if it was the backup QB or who, chucking him passes in the end zone, and the only thing he would do is one-handed grabs. And that's the analogy. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't show up to the game and one-handed snag something like that very often unless you're in the practice doing that over and over and over again. So, that practice makes perfect, or a lot of people have said recently, practice makes permanent, right? Yeah. So I think people are very short-sighted, and they want to fill shit now. And the way they think they can fill shit now is by finding the right candidate for the rec that's on the board now. And they have no foresight to be able to see that the real money in this industry is made exactly how you described it. I didn't do this on purpose. I wasn't smart. I don't know if I had somebody sit me down and explain this, but ultimately this is what I figured out, which is what you're describing. If you want to make a lot of money in this industry, and if you want to help a lot of people, and you can do them simultaneously, that's by building a huge network of individuals. So the way you do it is when you're assigned to a requirement, you're utilizing that rec as a way to build your network in that area. Mm-hmm. Hey, we need a firewall engineer for a particular client. Well, now you're going to be talking to a ton of network people in general, and the majority won't fit the requirement that you're working on. But when you catch the good people, you work them through your process, and you have a follow-up system, and you keep in touch with these people. Maybe they're available now. Maybe their contract's going to end. Maybe they're in a permanent job and they're good, but they're waiting for a promotion or a raise or whatever the situation is. It's a friggin' both and. There's no other way to put it. It's both. So why can Odell Beckham catch those passes? It's because he was working on it. So how do you fill tough to fill Java developer recs? You have to spend months, maybe even years, building a network of people. That's not fun. That's not sexy. That's not easy. But ultimately, to your point, is it eventually gets easy because of the work that you put in on the front part.
Do you think, I was just thinking of this, do you think recruiters listening to this now might be thinking, well, Chad, I'd love to do that, but my management's got their thumb on me to get 10 submittals this week.
For sure. One of our recruiters right now here talks about how much he likes working here because his old firm wouldn't let him do anything proactive. They'd yell at him for doing something proactive. So there are firms out there, maybe it's the organization or maybe it's the particular manager, but they might be effing it up by not encouraging that. But the reason why recruiters job jump is because they're not making any money in the present moment.
Right.
And I once had somebody come in here and say that recruiting is a free agent model because you can just take your skill and go somewhere else. And that is a short-sighted mentality, because if you want to make a lot of money and you want to place a lot of people, the only way to do it is to stick with one organization for a long period of time. But the first 6 to 18 months of doing any new commission-based job sucks. And most people don't have the foresight. I didn't either. I was 2 seconds from quitting every day.
Yeah.
Like, I was struggling too. I'm married, kids, etc. Like, I was broke.
Yeah.
I just got fortunate where I was able to stay long enough and have people challenge me to stay. And then those long-term recruiting efforts paid off.
Yeah. Well, I think that short-sighted bastard who said that about the free agency, I think he was short-sighted. You bring up this great point. Because I do think if you look on LinkedIn, if you spend a day looking on LinkedIn at recruiters or salespeople, but we're talking about recruiters right now.
Yeah.
Would you say it's obviously common that they bounce every couple of years, give or take, right? Every 2 to 3 years is common.
The high majority.
I mean, if someone's been at a job for 5 years, it's like, wow, let's.
It's impressive.
Yep. And I think you are actually spot on about. I do believe.
Hey, thank you, Chad.
I do believe a lot of recruiters would say, well, it is kind of a free agent business because recruiting is such a grind. It's such a grind. And so people grind it out for a couple of years and they just got to make a move because it's such a grind. But yet,
but you're starting over.
Yes. See, I believe you're right. And this might be a lesson.
But you're starting all over. Here's the factor to drive home what you're saying. Everybody that I've hired here has multiple years of experience.
Yeah.
Do you know how many of those people walked in the door, recruiters only? How many of those people walked in the door, multiple years of experience, with a defined, documented pipeline? And pipeline means people that they already know presently that are looking. Either they're perm and they're willing to leave for the right job, or they're unemployed and they're looking right now for a variety of reasons. In addition to having a network of people that they've built up over time that they keep in touch with, that as long as they keep in touch with them, when that person's ready. It's like freaking 5%.
Yeah.
And these are tenured recruiters.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why is because if you had that in the frickin' first place, you wouldn't have quit your damn job.
Yep.
Now, granted, you might have worked for a dipshit boss, a staffing company that's going nowhere, a staffing company that closed an office, or laid off a bunch of salespeople. There can absolutely be factors out of your control. Mm-hmm. And myself running a staffing company, I'm trying to find those people whenever I'm ready to hire. But that long-term mentality is very, very rarely utilized. Mm-hmm. And anybody out there who's kicking ass in the staffing business and has been for a long time knows that is the thing that separates them from everybody else.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think, again, if there's recruiters who are listening that have been at their firm for like a couple, 2-3 years, and they're doing pretty well, but the grind is getting to them, I got this advice once from a headhunter, a recruiter of recruiters that's well known in town, and he said, Chad, sometimes the best move is to stay put. And maybe that could be one of the takeaways from these last 10, 15 minutes we've been talking for recruiters is if what it is you want is for your job to get easier, and you've been gutting it out for 2-3 years and you're doing pretty well, but the grind is starting to get to you, you might want to grind it out for another 2-3 years, and you'll find it's going to get a lot easier. And maybe a lot of recruiters aren't giving it enough time to get easy.
No, this is good advice for anyone.
Yeah.
Because everything we do, I don't care what your job is, it's a grind. Period. I don't care if you're bartending at a restaurant, it's a freaking grind. Right? So like, if you want to progress, you have to embrace the grind. Period. What's great about the commission-based environment is if you embrace the grind's never going away, but your income will go up with it, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're grinding 10, 12 hours a day, but you're making $200,000 a year to do it.
Yeah.
And then you can figure out a way, hopefully in your own personal life, or maybe you get lucky and you have stock in the right company, and you can either sock dough away or whatever it might be. But like, that's employee advice because, but you know, there's somebody out there right now going, bullshit, Jeremy. Like, I'm grinded right now in my job and I know the right thing to do is to leave. And they can be right, because think about it as an employee. If you get promoted, who has the leverage? If you get promoted in your current organization, do you have the leverage or does your employer have the leverage?
Well, I would think the employer has the leverage.
Yeah, because they know exactly what you make.
Right.
So if you get promoted and you're making 73 grand and they move you into like a legit new level, that new level at another organization might make 95, but at this new level in your own company, they're like, well, this dude or this gal's at 72. So we can give them a promotion, give them the warm and fuzzies of being loved, and only give them 81. Right? So that's where, like, that notion alone is where this lack of loyalty came from to corporate America. Remember the days of, like, I stayed at IBM for 40 years?
Right.
Like, there's no more pensions, so there's no more long-term reason to stay there, because there is no, like, profit sharing at most organizations. And then in addition, if I get promoted, they're going to fucking nickel and dime me. Right. Screw that shit.
Right.
So I'm going to strategically make moves to new organizations because the new organization doesn't have a vantage point about what I was making previously. They're hiring from the outside, and they have a definitive line in the sand on what they think is A, their budget, and B, what this person's worth. So if I'm making 72 for XYZ company and I get promoted in this job, this is what I'm thinking as an employee. I'm not turning down a promotion. But all I'm going to do is sit in this promotion for the next 6 to 12 months and take my new fucking title and go elsewhere.
Right.
Right? So then now I got my new title. I'm only at 82 instead of 72. And now I can go jump to 95 at a new company. Or maybe I don't even want to get promoted. Maybe I just want to make more money doing what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Well, what do corporations do? They give you a freaking 3% cost of living increase.
Yep.
So screw that. I'm going to go to another organization and they're going to pay me, they're going to give me 18%, not knowing that it's 18%, but I'm using the exact same skill set that I had yesterday to make 18% more money than I did.
Yeah.
And that's how our economy works.
Let's turn the page, shall we? Let's talk about account managers.
Account managers.
Sales guys.
Have
Sales gals.
Have we gone too far down the staffing rabbit hole for the job seeker hiring manager?
Ooh, okay. Well, we talked about the hiring manager.
A little bit.
So
we
you want
talked
to talk
about employees too. Okay, so let's go account managers.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a thought?
We don't have to spend as long on them because it's the same principle. I think what an account manager wants, if I may be so real, would be they want to be handed a bunch of accounts or a couple that all the hiring managers are already identified, have already been met with.
There's already an agreement.
Yep, relationships are already in place. They probably make 3 phone calls. The managers pick up their calls. They get recs. And then the recruiters do all the work and they fill the recs and get rich.
That would be ideal.
And do a lot of coffee and
sure,
golf.
that'd be awesome.
And
golf especially.
Yeah, lots of coffees and lunches and golf and hanging out. I think that's what account managers want. What do you think?
I agree. Interesting question. I think account managers can be cut from different cloths. I think I'm of the opinion that there's 2 different types of account managers, and it is a farmer versus a hunter. The farmer is more prevalent, which is what you're describing. Somebody who takes an existing client and breaks it open. And then the hunter is the one responsible for going to land new business. And that can be exhausting. And there's a lot of different ways I've seen this done. There are staffing companies out there that hire hunters to land a customer that in turn turn it over to an existing quote unquote account management team.
Yep.
And then they are compensated for a year or 2 or whatever the arrangement is on that customer. And then they move on to the next one and go break it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let me ask you something. I just thought of this while you were
why
talking.
not?
Yeah, because we don't have a script.
We have no script. We have a title, With 'em. What's in it for me?
Do you think this is common? Someone gets hired and they're really a farmer. And then they work at the company for a couple of years, and they take whatever their numbers are, and then go look for another job and advertise that they were really a hunter.
Fucking right they do.
You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah.
Maybe I was given an account that was already doing 10 grand a week.
Okay, I'm gonna argue less negative. Okay, less negative. There are salespeople that were at an existing staffing company that they themselves built a major client into a huge whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe they had a falling out with their own manager. Maybe that organization got acquired. Pick any story, but something went south. And now they're leaving a staffing company with a really established customer, and they move to a new customer or a new staffing company. I'm screwing this up.
Yep.
And they argue that they're a hunter, but they're not anymore. So they broke that customer, broke it into 19 different places and all these different departments, filled 40, 50, 60 recs a year, and were kicking ass. But now they're walking into a new staffing company with this clout of 40 or 50 billable consultants at any given moment, but they forgot the fact that they went from a hunter into a farmer. So that situation gets a lot of people caught. Not only the new staffing company, but the existing salesperson, because that's a completely different skill set. I'm going to cold call and hammer LinkedIn and beg, borrow, and steal to either land a new customer or to meet with new managers. That's completely different than I have a current existing customer with an established agreement with 11 different hiring managers that hire for me consistently. And I think both sides of the fence can misdiagnose what they're looking for in the other.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really tricky spot, because you as the successful salesperson already have this mental image of who you are. But now your new staffing company needs you to go break shit, and that's not really what you do anymore.
Yeah. I was just, you can come up with dozens of examples when you've been in the business for a long time. I'm sure you have some in your brain. I'm just thinking about, this one particular salesperson I worked with that's been with the company now several years was literally handed everything after the person in front of him retired. So, and then given the people, the billables, and given that spread.
Nice for them.
And he's flat. So I'm thinking that dude's gonna someday look for another job and tell people he was a $40,000 a week sales guy, but he stepped into a $38,000 a week territory.
Yeah.
And didn't land any of those accounts. I think our industry is full of that. A lot of bullshit being.
I agree, but I've also been pleasantly surprised when I'm hiring salespeople that have been very honest with the fact that, and you were one of these people. To kiss your ass for 2 seconds.
Yes.
You were one of these people that came in and said, I'm not going to bullshit you. I have 3 or 4 hiring managers at a couple of different clients that I've been really, really good buddies with for a long time. And I can't call my shot on how quickly I can get an agreement, but this person will always call me back or reply to my emails or whatever. Mm-hmm. Most of them come in to meet with me and say, I have 1 or 2 in my back pocket, but I have to go figure out the rest.
Yeah.
However, I have had people ask me directly, what are you looking for? Do you have an existing territory that you're looking to hand over? And sometimes I do. Right now, I have 5 or 6 accounts that my next hired salesperson is going to be given. But I'm also very honest with them, saying these are small market accounts. So we're talking 5 or 6 accounts, 1, 2, 3 recs a year that I'm going to hand you. And then the other 80% of your time is going to be building other stuff.
So I'm going to give you the farm, but you got to hunt within the farm.
I'm going to give you the farm, and this farm is like a patch of land.
Then you got to hunt.
And then you need to figure out how to cultivate that land.
Yeah.
Because I still wouldn't even call it hunting. like the agreements in place.
Yeah.
Even if you could break open that customer into a new area, there might only be one other area. It's just a smaller customer. It just is. And then there are people where I'm asking them to come in and I'm asking them to pound and hammer and just, I need you to show up with your frickin' shotgun, understanding that we're going hunting every day. And you have to know this is what we're doing all day.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be patient. I understand. I don't care if you've been in the business 20 plus years and you have existing people that you know. The first 90 to 120 days, the first 3 to 4 months is going to be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And you're going to be calling so many people and scratching and clawing and networking and et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to build your... Think of how many salespeople that you and I both have worked with that had existing customers that the people inside of the staffing company are like, well, yeah, freaking Chris is super successful because he's got blank. And we're all like, hey, dumbass, he had blank for the last 9 years. And when he first got it, it was nothing. Like he had to kill himself to get there.
Right.
And then sometimes a staffing company will give you a client and yeah, there's an agreement. And yeah, it used to be at so-and-so, but it needs to be cultivated from the very, very beginning. I'm trying to find the salespeople that know their value and know what swim lane they fit in. And let's just fucking be honest with each other.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just be honest with me about where your skills lie, and I'll be honest with you about what I'm looking for. Because if you need me to hand you accounts that you can go farm, this may or may not be the right time for you.
Yeah. It just makes me think back to interviewing prospective salespeople in the past. And I would beg them. I would share with them what's in my pocket. I would share with them the magician's secret and say, look, dude, I know that you've done a $30K a week sales producer, right? And you got 2 or 3 or 4 go-to accounts where most of your spread's coming from. So I know you're going to have a non-compete for a year and a half. So just tell me it's going to be a struggle and take you a year and a half. And I can't tell you how many salespeople in an interview will take that after I just told them. I'm basically telling them what I want them to tell me back. And they'll say, oh, no, I can hit the ground running. I'll have this thing right up. And it's that lack of honesty that irritates me. Where I think you just alluded to that. If they would just identify where their swim lane.
Yeah, but not everybody thinks that way. Yeah. The only reason why I think that way now is not because I'm some genius, because I'm not. It's just because I've been able to step back and go, here's where I am, aka the company is, and here's what I need from you. Are you this person or not? Yeah. And if I spell it out and give them a blank canvas to be able to, like if I give them permission to be able to just be honest, then we can both know whether or not this is a good fit. A lot of other staffing companies are not hiring people that way. A lot of them are promoting from within.
Yep.
And you have a recruiter that proved their worth to be able to be in sales, and then you're just hoping that they can figure it out. And maybe you're a massive organization where you can just wait and give them time, but it's really tough to take somebody who hasn't sold before and ask them to go develop even a mid-market territory.
Sure.
Just in general, account managers, let's go back to what's in it for you. Account managers should only be account managers if they want to fucking sell. Period. I think our industry overvalues salespeople because we presume that is the harder of the job. But if you're a natural born recruiter, recruit. That's your jam. Stay there. But if you have a genuine passion to work with the customer and you get off by setting initial meetings and getting account breaking opportunities, or you have an account and you're meeting with a new manager for the first time and that's what jazzes you up, then you should be in sales, period. So and I just think a lot of people are in the wrong job because they perceive sales being a better job, a cooler job, and a lot of companies it's better compensated in sales.
And don't you think that's the fault of the staffing firms themselves, in that they set up their career path to be, junior recruiter, salesperson?
Yeah, but they would laugh at me right now because we're a $3-4 million organization and they're a $3-4 billion organization.
Sure.
So I'm trying to prove that model is antiquated.
Yeah.
And that you're better to grow and to establish by just having people in the right job and hiring them to be what they need to be. But you could argue that. I get your point. I don't disagree with you. Here's why I mainly agree with you. Because I've seen so many people that were such awesome recruiters that were just naturally born to be recruiters, and they got lured into sales via the comp plan, the office, the title, the business card, the promotion,
Yep.
and they flame out. And I don't even know if that's necessarily on them. It might just be they're in the wrong job, period.
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen that happen. But I don't. But you only know one way. Like they didn't stay as a recruiter, so I don't know if they would have been a recruiter successfully long term. What I know for sure is that in our industry, recruiters feel undervalued because salespeople are valued as more, and I think both of the jobs can be equally challenging. I think at the beginning of your career. At the beginning of a job, let's say, whether you've been in the industry or not, the sales job itself is harder to land customers. But once you've become a little bit more established, the sales job itself becomes a little bit easier, quote unquote. You have a select number of hiring managers, you're getting repetitive recs from the same relationship, whereas recruiters, it's a churn and burn, place an individual and move on to the next one. So it might be a little bit easier for a recruiter to get their first fill if they started on the same day with a new salesperson. Right. But long term, that recruiter is going to have to grind forever because you need to place individuals, because you're placing one person at a time. You as a salesperson could call out to one of your hiring managers and get 6 recs in one call.
Yeah.
Now it might take a while to get there. That's the hard part at the beginning, right. But that job itself becomes a little bit easier as you get more established. Whereas recruiters, the more established you get, your grind never goes away.
Unless hopefully you've built a strong network.
But even if you built a strong network, these are individuals.
Yeah.
You're not going to fill 6 jobs through one consultant.
Right.
You might have 6 openings, but you need 6 different people. Yeah. You as a salesperson could fill 6 recs with one hiring manager. By one call, 6 recs, bring them to the pit fills 6 different positions, and you filled 6 different recs based on one relationship.
Oh, that's beautiful, Jeremy.
It's gorgeous. But it's the prettiest thing ever. Yeah. But that is something a recruiter can't pull off.
Right.
Like you have to have, if you as a recruiter wanted to fill all 6 of those job postings with that one account manager of yours, you have to have 9 people, maybe 12, ready to go.
Yeah. All right, so with the time we got left, do we want to talk about job seekers and what it is they want?
We have to. We've touched on it a lot.
Yeah.
But now the question's posed to you. What do they want?
What do I think a job seeker wants? Based on my personal experience, I think a job seeker, in our industry especially, but this could apply to any industry, they want follow-up. They want regular follow-up and contact. They want quality jobs presented to them after a qualification call or meeting. I think those are probably the 2 big things. And you've give me your experience, but me as a recruiter, my experience has been I have rarely had a candidate disappointed or pissed at me for lack of job. If I have nothing for them, I have nothing for them. But what I've found is if I'm staying in regular contact and I'm doing what I say I'm going to do and I'm following up with them and I'm staying in touch on a regular basis, what that means to stay in touch would change depending on the activity we have for them.
Or what they tell you they want.
Right. I personally think that's what they want. They want recruiters who will do what they say they're going to do, who will follow up, and when it comes to that point, present quality jobs.
I think the answer is the same for hiring managers. They just want people to listen to them and give them what they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, it's
Yeah.
just that simple.
Yeah.
Like you contact a job seeker and they say that they're perm and they're happy. You ask a couple of follow-up questions. Why are you perm and you're happy? Well, it's been a great job for me and I feel like I'm in a good position for a promotion. Okay, cool. When do you think you get promoted? Based on my timeline, I'm thinking March or April. All right, well, it's November now. So how about I give you a call in February, March, or April, and we'll see how things are going. And then you just follow up. That's it. Same with salespeople. Same with hiring managers, right? Like, hey, do you have any particular job openings we can help you at your client site? No, we're good right now, but based on timeline, A, you never know when someone's going to quit. And B, we don't have any projects coming up. Okay, well, as promised, I'll follow up with you. I'll continue to stay in touch, and we'll see what happens, right? All of the people that I've worked with for years and years and years and years, I was recruiting for 11 straight years, well, really 13, depending upon how you look at it. The people that love me, I don't really think I did anything special. I'm positive of it. I didn't do anything special. I just kept in touch with them consistently. Hey, how you doing? Hey, man, been talking to you forever. How's everything going at blankety blank company? It's going great. Okay, cool. When should I call you? 3 months, 6 months? What are you thinking? And then, oh my gosh, call them 3 to 6 months later. And sometimes you caught them at the right time. Sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you lose them and they took something in between. Like anything can happen. But the reality is just give them what they're asking for. Mm-hmm. I think the job seekers get most annoyed when they're dealing with people that are not fucking listening, right? Hey, I live in Woodbury. That's the east side of town. Well, if I call you with a job in frickin' Chanhassen, it's the west side of town.
Right.
So if you directly told me that's not doable for you and I'm calling you with crap like that, I'm wasting your time. However, if I say, hey, you know what? I know I haven't called you in a little while, but I'm presuming you're still looking. The only job I have for you is in the west side of town, but I know you're on the east side of town. Is it safe to assume that that's not a good fit? They're cool with that because you just acknowledged what you already heard from them before, right? But if you're trying to strong arm them into shit or your communication blows, then like they experience that. Like it just gets tiring. So, I mean, it's not very complicated and we can hammer this to death, but think of anything you buy. You walk into a car dealership and you say you want a Honda Accord and they're like, totally hear ya. But check out this Pathfinder, and you're like,
right.
I wanted a 5-seater sedan, and you're trying to sell me a 7-seater freaking SUV? Listen to what I just told you, right? Like, it's not very complicated. Now, maybe, just maybe, you have industry knowledge that you could knock their socks off with something that, hey, I get it, I heard you, I'm hearing you, I just wanted to bring this up because here's something you might not know. Okay, that's entertainable. But again, you have to acknowledge the fact that I heard you, totally get it, this is what I'm going to send you, or whatever. I mean, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but you understand.
That horse is dead.
Dead.
Bitch.
That goes back to, we need to look up beating a dead horse. Mm-hmm. All right, everyone. That's it. Episode number 6, What's in it for me? We tried to cover every different vantage point of hiring managers, consultants, recruiters, salespeople. What do they want? Why do they want what they want? We'll come back again next week with another topic, which of course has not been decided yet. And we appreciate your time. We'll see you next week. You just got done listening to Hire and Fire, a production by Pyra Consulting. Please check us out online on either LinkedIn, Facebook, or our website at pyraconsulting.com. That's PIRA consulting.com.